welcome to the 2014 Cambridge Science Festival. Hello, Cambridge. It's good to see you all here again in this, which has become our favorite venue to launch our festival, and which is a way for me to remind myself to thank First Parish for lending us their wonderful meeting house, especially on Good Friday. But many, many thanks to First Parish. What a wonderful place. So, for those of you I don't know, which is probably quite a lot, my name's John Durant. I pretend to run the Cambridge Science Festival. In fact, the person who runs it with 2 or 3 other people who run it together is P.A. Darbeloff. Where's P.A.? Come on, P.A., you can't hide. She's got a very, very bright top on. Come on, P.A., where are you? She stepped out. And Sung Kim sitting over there, who's her assistant. There's P.A. Thank you both very much. Thank you. Now we begin to get to describe what's actually going to happen, and Dan is going to start the countdown clock. So this is what is going to rule our lives for the next pretty much 2 hours. You're going to see this clock counting down as each of our speakers talks, and it will count down, as you will see, to 0, but when it gets to 1 minute from 0, it will emit an electronic noise, which will signal to the speaker, or to those of you who are asking questions, if we're in the question time, that you've got 60 seconds to go. And what it should do, when we get to 0, is produce a large sort of MGM-style gong. But the gong has gone, and we can't make it work tonight. I don't know why. So instead of the gong, we have Dan with his bell. And when it gets to actually 5 minutes, Dan will ring the bell. And what will happen then, we hope, is that a speaker will conclude the sentence they're on, or at most the paragraph they're on, and then cease. And if we're doing question and answers, we'll finish the answer to the question we're on and move on. That way we'll keep to time, and the whole thing, I hope, will run like a kind of relay race. This is a kind of smorgasbord of 10 different ideas from across the whole face of science, engineering, and technology, brought to us, as we've done in the past, by 10 stellar researchers from our community here in and around Cambridge. I'm going to introduce all of those speakers in a moment. I'm going to introduce them all together at the beginning, because once we get going, the idea is that we should have as few interruptions to the intellectual entertainment as possible. Before we do any of that, actually, I'd like you to stop the clock, if you would. And I want to just be slightly different for a moment before we go any further. And that is to say that some of you may or may not realize, I think many do, that last year, when we ran this festival, we, like many other people, had our lives disrupted by what happened around the Boston Marathon 2013. We had our lives disrupted like everybody else on the Monday of our festival, and we lost a few events, and we all thought that those terrible events, at least we'd got past them. But as we now all know, there was a second series of happenings later in the week, and in fact, less than an hour after we concluded a big festival event in Candell Square, events happened which involved the killing of MIT police officer Sean Collier, who was known to many of us here in the festival and in the MIT Museum where I work, because he was often a duty officer for us. And he was on duty that night in Candell when he had the misfortune to encounter, we believe, the suspects, one of whom is now awaiting trial for his murder. And actually, his murder took place on the 18th of April, exactly a year ago today. It was a horrendous thing, a terrible experience, obviously for his family, but for the whole MIT community. And I think what we should do, if you're willing, please, is to just take a moment in silence to remember him. He died protecting us, as well as the larger community. Perhaps it would be good if we stood and just remembered him on this anniversary. Thank you. All right, thank you very much indeed. We continued our festival last year for a second time after the recovery from the lockdown that followed on that killing. And we felt at the time, and we feel now, the best way to honor Sean and the others who lost their lives is to do what Sean Collier actually died protecting our right to do, which is to talk science and technology. And we felt this evening, as you'll see, maybe we should start the clock again. We've never stopped it before, by the way. That's a first. We thought what we would do this evening is to just illustrate, through big ideas, to begin with, in the first 3 presentations you're going to hear, some of the ways in which science and technology, among other things, help us to cope with the terrible events that sometimes happen in life, such as the events of last year. So our first 3 speakers all do work in areas that are relevant to trying to prevent and, if they do happen, trying to mitigate the consequences of disasters, accidents, and acts of terror. We're going to start momentarily, and we will conclude 100 minutes from now.